Hi, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Carol Gumbart. I'm being interviewed by Laurel Gumbart and Kirsten Noonan for their oral history project.
Alright, we're just going to start asking you some questions.
Sure.
When the web first came out in 1991, how old were you?
I was 31 years old.
And how did you first hear about the internet?
Well, my recollection is that, well, it was probably either in a newspaper or from somebody that I was working with, and we were talking about using it. I don't remember the exact moment. It wasn't like, I think it was sort of an evolving process. So it wasn't there wasn't one moment where all of a sudden it was available. You know, it was available to people who were using computers a lot more earlier than it was to me.
Were you using computers a lot?
I had been using computers in college a little bit. I hadn't had to use it a whole lot, and I had to use, my youngest brother, who was 10 years younger, had a Commodore computer, and you had to, it was a dial-up, so you had to plug it into your telephone and get a connection through your phone. So I didn't use it a whole lot.
How many people do you think did start using computers, or were using them?
I think it was probably used more in some of the schools like MIT and Harvard and places where they had, you know, a bigger technology program. I'm sure there was, and I think people in business were probably, you know, offices were probably using it as well. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it was being used at home. You know, everyone at home wasn't using it, in part because you didn't have all this cable that allowed you to just connect, or even wireless, you know, connection. So you had to use your phone, your home landline, to connect to the computer.
Did you have your own computer?
I didn't have my own computer until after I was married.
Was it common for people not to
Actually,
have a
that's not true.
computer?
Let me go back. I did have a computer before we got married, because we did our wedding invitations on our own computer with our printer.
So was it common for people to not have a computer when the first internet came out?
Yeah, absolutely.
Alright, when would you use the web?
Well, I remember thinking when it first came out that I didn't even know what to look up, because it just seemed such a broad, I didn't know how you would use it. When it first came out, I really didn't know how you would use it. I remember my husband saying, you know, well, let's look something up. And I said something like, well, let's look up red wine. And it was like, well, that's not specific enough. It had to be more like a question, you know, that we're looking for. So until it really became something I used at work, I don't think I used it all that much. Which, sorry, I was going to say, which compared to today, you know, you use it all the time.
Yeah. So would you say it was hard for, like, any person to adjust to the web?
I think it was a new concept to a lot of people.
Okay.
So I don't know that it was hard, but I don't think people understood what was available to you and how much you could use it.
How did people react when the internet first came out?
I think in the beginning, because it wasn't really understood how you would use it, there wasn't a huge reaction to it. But I think as people started to get to use it a lot more, there were a lot of questions about privacy that became a concern, and as people especially started using it for shopping online, you know, that became a whole nother issue that, you know, people, I think, initially were concerned. Even though you're used to giving your credit card over a telephone, they weren't used to putting it on the computer and sending it out. So I think that there was one thing that was, you know, questionable is, I mean, I think email was sort of the first thing that it was being used for in work too. So there was always the being careful, you know, who you were going to send it to, because it was going out to anybody. It could be, you know, sort of dispersed far and wide.
Mm-hmm. How did you find information before the search engines and web all came out?
Well, kind of the traditional things would be advertisements in newspapers. You know, if you were looking for information or reading the newspapers as far as news, you know, whether we watched the television or listened to the radio, we didn't go online to search that. At work, there were some, incredible changes that you could. One of the things that I have to do for work is look up things at the Registry of Deeds, and instead of having to leave my office and go to the Registry of Deeds, I would be able to just look up the information as it became available online. So it's just a huge time saver, and it's right at your fingertips.
Was it hard to adjust to all of this information being available to you so easily?
I think it did take some time because, again, it wasn't part of what I grew up with, so you weren't used to spending your free time at a computer. When you came home, you didn't immediately jump on and start looking up other information, and you didn't obviously have cell phones at that time, and so that wasn't right at your hip all the time to be able to get the answers.
Was it easy for any person, no matter the age, to use the web?
I think if you didn't have any skills in typing, it was hard to use the computer, so people didn't use the web the same way. And I think that, again, if you didn't use it at work, you were much slower to use the web. So it depended, I think, in part on how quickly it moved into your world. If you had it at work and you had it at home, you became much more friendly with it, or it became much more user friendly.
Do you think that now age does affect the use of the internet?
I think, one thing that I've seen, or which I believe is new, is that so many younger kids, like real young children, are using either the internet, or they're using computers, or tablets, or just things that they can touch with touch screens, and that they are they're asking older parents, like grandparents, to Skype, and to be in touch with them when they're not around. And I think that's a technology that we never would have probably thought to use. So I think age, that's just a showing that young people, young kids, are making it broader for older parents, grandparents, to stay in touch and to continue to use it. So I think that's a good way to look at it.
So you think that the generation is how it's more affected and not just age?
Yes, I don't think it's so much the age, except for that I do think younger and younger kids are using all kinds of tablets and touch screens. Then even when you guys were young, we didn't have that, and I think it makes it easier for them to just jump into the whole technology world.
What did you use the web for most often?
What did I, or what do I, or?
What did you?
What did I? Well, again, I think I mostly used it at work because I was using it for email, and so that's not really using the web so much, but that was what the majority of work was.
So what would you say you use it for more now?
Now I use it for everything. Now I'll use it for looking up recipes, for searching for images, for ideas of things that I might want to decorate with. I use it to, to purchase airline tickets, to get deals on ski tickets, all kinds of different things, including work.
What were the search engines that you used when the web first came out?
I'm not even sure if I don't know that I knew what the search engine was. When it first came out, I probably didn't understand that. All I remember is that there was the www, and then you typed something in. So I'm not sure that I even knew what to use.
What search engines do you use today?
Almost exclusively Google. Sometimes, I might use Bing for some maps. And then, on my phone, I use different applications. I don't know if those are using different search engines. They probably are, but like Navigator.
How has the internet changed since you first started using it?
Well, it's definitely more to me, it seems much more worldwide, like everybody's using it. So it's really universal, and it seems like it is definitely much faster. And there's probably, I mean, one thing you have to always wonder is how much misinformation's out there. You know, I mean, that could have been the same back, you know, when it first came out as well. But, you know, through you know, Wikipedia, you know that some stuff is up there, you know, but it may not necessarily be true. It's what everyone thinks it is. I think access to music and access to reading books online and getting, you know, purchasing stuff quickly, having it at your fingertips is just is the biggest difference.
What about the technology and devices? How has that changed?
Well, having the touch screen is a whole new thing. It's just very, you know, much more interactive. I mentioned the Skype, which I actually don't use, but would like to use. But the phone, having a cell phone that has information and applications, you know, I use the an iPad for work now, and has so many great applications, things that I can take in the field and immediately send it off, you know, to somebody else. All those, having the you know, 3G and 4G is something that we never would have had, you know, when it first came out, or at least I didn't know about it then.
How different?
And I was going to say, and stuff is much smaller and lighter and easier to take around with you.
Yeah. How different do you think it would have been if you didn't have the internet to use?
Feels like you'd be going back into the, you know, the days of so much less knowledge. I guess, you know, there's times when you like having it simplified, and, you know, you like to hold a book, or you'd like to have things that aren't interrupting you, so you're not always checking your email or wondering what the weather is 24/7. But it is nice in emergencies, you know, to have that information. It would be very hard to go back.
Thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
for speaking with us.
You're welcome.